Jason Statham had always thrived in the gym. For him, it wasn't just about lifting weights or maintaining his physique. It was about pushing his limits, both physically and mentally. As a seasoned action star, he had grown accustomed to the harsh regimen of intense workouts, yet the gym was his sanctuary. It was where he could focus solely on himself, blocking out everything else in the world. Today, however, the atmosphere was different. The usual hum of the gym, the sound of weights clanging and the rhythm of treadmills, was interrupted by something far more unsettling. Jason was in the middle of his set, lifting heavy dumbbells, when the noise hit his ears. A group of young men, their voices cutting through the air like knives. From across the gym, Jason could see the scene unfolding. A man in his late 30s, a black man, was at one of the weight benches, clearly struggling with a set of dumbbells that were too heavy for him. His form was off, and sweat streamed down his face, but he was determined to push through. But the group of young men surrounding him didn't see his effort. They only saw an opportunity to mock him. "Come on, man, you can't even handle that weight." One of them laughed loudly, his voice echoing in the otherwise quiet space. The others followed suit, smirking and snickering as they egged each other on. Jason paused mid-lift, his attention now fully on the situation unfolding before him. The man on the bench tried to ignore the taunts, but his discomfort was evident. He let out a strained breath, clearly trying to lift the weights with all his might. Jason knew what it felt like to be judged. He had been there himself, pushed to the brink. But this wasn't just a moment of struggling, it was a moment of cruelty. The young men didn't stop. They continued with their jabs, with one of them leaning in closer, taunting, "Maybe you should try a smaller weight next time, huh? You know, something you can actually handle." Jason's fists tightened. His blood began to boil. He had seen his fair share of arrogant and disrespectful people, but this was different. This was bullying, and no one deserved that. The black man, though trying his best to power through the mockery, was clearly being humiliated. Jason watched as the man placed the dumbbells down, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the mocking was heavier than the weights themselves. Jason's mind raced. He knew the pressure of being the odd one out, the pressure of being constantly judged, but this wasn't about him. This wasn't about just standing by and letting someone suffer at the hands of cruel people. He stood still for a moment, debating whether to step in. It wasn't his fight. After all, he was just here to work out. But then he saw the flicker of doubt in the man's eyes, the same doubt that Jason had felt countless times. And it was in that moment that Jason made up his mind. With a deep breath, he walked across the gym floor, his boots making a firm, deliberate sound with each step. The group of young men noticed his approach, their voices faltering for a moment. They turned, unsure of what to make of the sudden arrival of the Hollywood tough guy. Jason's voice, calm yet firm, broke the silence. "You think it's funny to pick on someone just trying to better themselves?" The men froze, their arrogant smiles faltering. Jason stood tall, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the gym. He didn't need to raise his voice. Yet there was no mistaking the authority in it. One of the young men, perhaps the leader of the group, stepped forward. "Hey man, we're just messing around, no harm done," he said, trying to brush it off. Jason wasn't buying it. "It's not just messing around when someone's being humiliated," he said, his eyes locked on the man who had been the target of the jokes. The man who had been avoiding eye contact looked up at Jason, a hint of gratitude in his eyes. "Are you okay?" Jason asked him, his tone softening for a moment. The man nodded, though it was clear he was still shaken. "Yeah, I'm fine, thanks." Jason turned back to the group, now visibly uncomfortable and unsure how to react. "You owe him an apology," Jason said, his words cutting through the tension like a blade. "And you should think twice before you try to tear someone down again." The group mumbled an apology, their voices full of embarrassment. Jason stood there for a moment longer, making sure the message had been received. He wasn't there to start a fight, but he was there to make sure that no one could get away with being cruel. Without another word, Jason turned and walked back to his workout. The atmosphere in the gym had shifted. The bullies had learned a valuable lesson, and the rest of the gym-goers were left to reflect on what had just transpired. Jason felt a strange sense of satisfaction as he resumed his workout. He had done the right thing, But deep down he knew this wasn't the end. This wasn't just about protecting someone from a few cruel words. It was about standing up to the toxic culture of bullying that often goes unchecked. Will it end here? Jason thought to himself as he picked up his weights again. Or is this just the beginning? But before he could think too much on it, a familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. The man from earlier walked over, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Hey, man," he said, offering a handshake. "I just wanted to thank you for stepping in. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't said something." Jason shook his hand firmly, giving a small nod. "It's no problem. We've all got to look out for each other." The man smiled. "Yeah, and I guess I'll keep lifting. No more letting them get to me." Jason smiled back. "Good. Keep pushing. Yourself. That's the only way to get better." The gym was quieter now, but the energy had shifted, and Jason Statham, the action star known for fighting on screen, had just made a real-world difference. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to see how this story unfolds. The tension may have subsided for now, but what's coming next could be even more shocking. Stay tuned. The gym returned to its usual rhythm. The clanking of weights, the hum of the treadmills, and the buzz of people pushing themselves to their limits filled the air again. But for Jason Statham, the tension lingered. He couldn't help but glance around the room, his mind replaying the encounter with the bullies. He had done the right thing, but there was something more to this situation than met the eye. The guy he had stepped in for, the one who had been humiliated, hadn't left yet. Jason noticed him on the other side of the gym, sitting on a bench, his gaze lost in thought as he wiped the sweat from his face. He was alone, looking like he didn't quite fit in with the usual crowd. Jason's curiosity got the better of him. He wiped his hands off and made his way over. As he approached, the man looked up, recognizing him immediately. "Hey," Jason greeted him with a small nod, trying to keep the interaction casual. The man stood up, extending his hand. "Oh, hey, thanks again for stepping in. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't said something." Jason shook his hand firmly. "No problem, it's the least I could do." The man smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Jason could tell there was something deeper going on, something the man wasn't saying. The way he stood, the way his shoulders were slightly hunched, told Jason that this wasn't just about the bullying. There was more beneath the surface. "I'm Jason, by the way," Jason offered, trying to break the ice. "Yeah, I know who you are," the man replied with a chuckle. "You're kinda hard to miss." Jason laughed lightly. "Fair enough. What's your name?" "Marcus," the man said, wiping the back of his neck with a towel. "Marcus Carter," Jason nodded. "Nice to meet you, Marcus. So, how long you been coming here?" Marcus hesitated for a moment before answering. "A few months. I'm just trying to get back into shape, you know. I used to be in better shape, but life, well, it gets in the way sometimes." Jason noticed the slight shift in Marcus's expression as he said that, like he was recalling something painful. It wasn't just about fitness, it was something more. "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to," Jason said, picking up on the discomfort. "But if you want to talk about it, I'm all ears." Marcus sighed, the weight of his thoughts pressing down on him. He wiped his face with the towel, then slung it over his shoulder. "I used to be on top of the world, you know, had a good job, a great family, everything seemed perfect. But one day it all came crashing down. I lost my job, my house, my wife, and everything. And now I'm just trying to rebuild, trying to find my way back. But it's hard. It's really hard." Jason listened intently, the pieces of Marcus's story falling into place. The struggle wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. The weight on his shoulders wasn't just from the dumbbells he was trying to lift, but from the burdens of his past. "I get it," Jason said, his voice softening. "I've been there, man. Life throws curveballs at you, and it's easy to feel like you're drowning. But the thing is, you've got to keep fighting. No matter how tough it gets, you get up, you keep going, and one day you'll look back and realize how far you've come." Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful. "I appreciate that. I guess it's just hard to keep going when everyone's telling you you're not good enough. And then you get here and it feels like you're being judged all over again." Jason understood that feeling all too well. It wasn't just about the physical challenges. It was the mental and emotional strain that took its toll. People often saw his strength on screen and in real life, But they didn't see the struggles, the battles with self-doubt, the moments when he questioned whether it was all worth it. It's not easy, Jason agreed. But you know what? It's those moments, the ones where you think you can't go on, that make you stronger. And when you come out the other side, you'll be proud of what you've accomplished. Marcus smiled a little more genuinely this time. Thanks, man, I needed to hear that. Jason slapped him lightly on the shoulder. Anytime. Just keep pushing, all right? Don't let anyone or anything stop you. As Marcus turned to head back to his workout, Jason watched him for a moment. There was something about Marcus that made Jason think. The strength wasn't just physical, it was mental and emotional. The real battle was always inside. Jason had been there before, battling against himself, questioning his worth, wondering if he could rise from the ashes. The conversation left a lingering thought in Jason's mind. How many others are out there struggling like Marcus? He shook, his head trying to focus. It wasn't his job to fix everyone, but he couldn't help feeling that he had a part to play in this story. He had stepped in for Marcus once. Maybe he could keep doing that. Maybe, just maybe, he could help Marcus find the strength he needed to overcome, not just the bullies at the gym, but the ones he'd been battling within himself for years. The day's workout was far from over, but Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of what he had just learned. Strength wasn't just about lifting weights, it was about lifting people up. And that's something Jason knew he could do. Want to see what happens next? Stay tuned for more of Jason's journey as he helps those around him rise above the struggles they face. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to be the first to know. The days following the gym incident were a blur for Jason Statham. Workouts became more routine, but his thoughts kept circling back to Marcus. Every time he hit the gym, he wondered if Marcus was still there, still struggling, still pushing himself to overcome his past. But Jason knew better than anyone that strength wasn't always about showing up. It was about what you carried inside and whether you had the will to keep going. Despite the initial tension that had surrounded the bullying incident, the gym had settled back into its usual rhythm. The group of young men who had mocked Marcus didn't approach him again. It was clear that Jason's intervention had made an impression, but while the gym had returned to normal, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unresolved. It was a Thursday afternoon when he walked into the gym, his usual focus shifting as he scanned the room. He didn't see Marcus at first, and for a moment, Jason wondered if it had all been a fluke. Maybe Marcus had decided to move on, to leave the gym behind. But then, near the back of the room, he spotted him. Marcus was working out alone, his movements slow but deliberate. He was lifting light weights, his face set in concentration. It was a stark contrast to the confident, carefree attitude of the gym's regulars, but Jason recognized something in the way Marcus moved, the determination, the quiet resolve to push through the pain, to keep going despite the odds. Jason decided to approach. He didn't want to intrude, but something told him that Marcus wasn't quite ready to face the world yet. Maybe it was time for a little push, again. "Hey," Jason greeted as he approached. Marcus looked up, surprise flashing across his face before recognition set in. "Oh, hey," Marcus said with a hesitant smile. "Didn't expect to see you today," Jason chuckled. "You think I just disappear after one little intervention?" He joked. "I told you, I'm here for the long haul." Marcus laughed lightly, but Jason could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He could tell that something had shifted in Marcus, but he wasn't sure whether it was for the better or worse. "I'm just here to get through the day," Marcus admitted, putting the dumbbells down. "Some days it feels like a fight. I'm not sure I'm winning, but I'm here. That's something, right?" Jason nodded, feeling the weight of the words. "You're doing more than you know. Just showing up is half the battle. You've got more strength than you give yourself credit for." Marcus sighed and wiped the sweat from his face. "I don't know, man. Some days it feels like I'm getting nowhere. Like, what's the point? I'm just stuck in the same spot, facing the same obstacles every day. Sometimes it feels like I'm just pretending to be okay, but deep down I'm still broken." Jason felt the shift in the atmosphere. He had heard these words before, not just from others, but from himself. The quiet desperation to be more than you are, to break free from the past, and yet feeling like you're trapped in an endless loop of failure. It was something Jason understood all too well. "It's easy to feel like that," Jason said, his voice quieter now. "Hell, I felt that way. I've been at the top of the world, and then you fall. You get knocked down and it feels like the whole world's against you. But the key is to not let that define you. You're not broken, Marcus. You're just in a fight, and that fight isn't over yet." Marcus looked up at him, his eyes filled with doubt. "How do you keep going when it feels like nothing's changing? When it feels like every step forward is followed by 2 steps back?" Jason leaned against a nearby machine, crossing his arms. "You don't always see the progress, but it's happening, even when you don't realize it. Strength isn't just about lifting weights or achieving instant results. It's about the little victories, the ones that nobody else sees. It's the days you get out of bed when all you want to do is stay down. It's the times you keep going, even though you don't know what's ahead." Marcus fell silent, absorbing the words. Jason could see the conflict in his eyes, the struggle to believe in himself, to trust that things could improve. But Jason knew better than anyone that sometimes it was that little flicker of belief that could spark change. "Look," Jason said, breaking the silence. "It's not going to happen overnight, but every time you show up, every time you push yourself a little further, that's progress. And one day you'll look back and realize how far you've come." Marcus smiled faintly. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I need to stop waiting for things to magically get better and just focus on doing what I can." "That's the spirit," Jason said with a grin. "Just keep pushing, the rest will follow." The conversation had shifted something inside Marcus. Jason could tell. But as he walked away to finish his own workout, he couldn't help but wonder, would Marcus stick with it? Would he find the strength to keep going, to rise above the things that were holding him down? Jason hoped so. Because if there was one thing he knew for certain, it was that strength wasn't about perfection, it was about persistence. And persistence, in the end, was what made all the difference. Want to see how Marcus's journey unfolds? Stick with us as Jason continues to mentor him through the tough times. The gym was quieter than usual. The usual noise of clanging weights and energetic chatter was replaced by the sound of focused effort as people worked through their routines. But Jason Statham couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that there was more to Marcus's story, more that he hadn't shared. Over the past couple of weeks, Jason had seen Marcus a few more times. He had made progress, his form had improved, and he was pushing himself harder with each session. But there was something that still weighed heavily on him. Jason could see it in the way Marcus sometimes looked around the gym, like he was trying to disappear in plain sight, like he was hoping no one would notice him. It wasn't just about the physical transformation anymore. Marcus was still carrying something deeper, a wound that hadn't healed. Jason knew that the external struggles were only part of the battle, but what was going on inside Marcus's head? Jason could relate to the feeling of wanting to run away from your own life, to hide from the things that were too painful to confront. On this particular day, Jason decided to push a little further. He had seen Marcus struggle again with his weights, a slight wince of frustration crossing his face as he put down the dumbbells. Jason knew this was his moment. This time he wasn't going to let Marcus slip away quietly. "Everything all right, Marcus?" Jason asked, walking up beside him. Marcus looked up, surprised. Yeah, I'm good. Just trying to get the hang of these again." But Jason could see through the mask. "You sure? You've been working hard lately, but something's off. You know you can talk to me, right?" There was a long pause, and for a moment Marcus didn't respond. Then finally he sighed and wiped his hands on his gym shorts. It's been a rough few years, you know. I thought that getting back into shape would fix things, make everything easier. But the more I try, the more it feels like it's all just pointless." Jason studied him carefully. "You think this is just about the gym, about getting your body in shape? It's bigger than that, man." Marcus frowned, clearly frustrated. "What do you mean? I'm here every day pushing myself, trying to fix everything. But it feels like nothing's changing." Jason leaned against the weight rack, his eyes steady. "It's not just about the weights or the bench presses. It's about your mindset. It's about how you're fighting the battle inside your head. You've got to stop thinking that everything's going to magically fall into place just because you're working out. Life doesn't work like that." Marcus looked down at his hands, his fingers still clenched tightly. I know, it's just, I feel like I've failed at everything. My career, my marriage, my relationships. I thought if I could get back to being the guy I used to be, everything else would fall into place, but it doesn't work that way. Jason could hear the pain in his voice. He knew exactly what Marcus meant. He had been there himself. The crushing feeling of not being good enough, of watching everything you've worked for slip through your fingers. It was a brutal place to be, and Jason had learned the hard way that trying to outrun your demons only made them stronger. You're right. It doesn't work that way, Jason said gently. But here's the thing. You're not the same guy you were before. You're someone new. And you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. You don't have to fix everything at once. The key is to focus on one thing at a time. Build yourself back up piece by piece. And don't expect everything to be perfect. That's not what this is about. Marcus looked up, meeting Jason's eyes for the first time in their conversation. There was something different in his expression now. Less defeat, more understanding. You really think I can do that? Jason nodded slowly. I don't just think it, I know it. I've been where you are, and I can tell you that it's not too late. You've just got to trust yourself again. It won't be easy, but nothing worth having ever is. For a long moment, Marcus said nothing, but Jason could see a shift happening. The frustration in his eyes was starting to fade, replaced with something more powerful, determination. Finally, Marcus spoke. I don't know where to start. I don't even know if I can. Jason smiled, his usual confidence returning. Start with today. Don't worry about everything else right now. Just take today one step at a time. Marcus stood there, his shoulders a little less slumped than before. All right, I'll try. One day at a time. Good, Jason said, clapping him on the back. And when you need someone to push you or just someone to listen, I'm here. We all need help sometimes. As Marcus nodded and began to work out again, Jason stood there for a moment watching him. He felt a sense of pride. This was more than just a physical transformation. It was a shift in Marcus's mindset, a breakthrough that was long overdue. But Jason knew that this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long and filled with challenges. There would be moments when Marcus would doubt himself, when the weight of the world would feel too heavy to carry. But if there was one thing Jason was certain of, it was that Marcus had the strength to keep going. He just needed to believe it. As Jason turned to head to the weights himself, a thought crossed his mind. Maybe, just maybe, Marcus was finally starting to rise above the past. The gym buzzed with activity, but for Marcus everything felt muted. He had been coming in consistently for the past few weeks, trying to follow Jason's advice, taking things one step at a time, and in some ways things were improving. He felt stronger, more focused, but the weight of his past, those memories of failure, disappointment, and heartache hadn't left him. No matter how much he tried to push them away, they seemed to haunt him at every turn. It was one of those days when the gym felt unusually crowded. The regulars were all there, pushing through their routines. Jason was off doing his usual circuit, keeping his eyes peeled for anyone who needed a little guidance, while Marcus found a corner of the gym to work on his deadlifts. He was lifting his usual weight, but as he pulled the bar up, something felt off. His form wavered, and for a split second, he thought he felt a twinge in his lower back. He ignored it, trying to push through. The next lift came, and then the next, but with each movement that nagging feeling grew. By the time he reached his last set, it was more than just a twinge. It was a sharp, uncomfortable pain. Marcus dropped the bar quickly, wincing as he straightened his back, his breath coming in short bursts. He knew better than to push through it. He had learned that lesson the hard way in the past. Jason, who had been nearby, noticed Marcus's sudden discomfort. He approached with a concerned look on his face. "Hey, you all right?" he asked, his voice calm but concerned. Marcus bent down slightly, trying to stretch the muscle, but the pain didn't ease. "Yeah, I don't know, I think I pulled something. I shouldn't have pushed it." He grimaced, feeling his frustration bubbling up. "This always happens. I get one step forward, and then something like this happens and I'm back to square one." Jason put a hand on his shoulder. Hey, don't beat yourself up. Injuries happen, it's part of the process. You're pushing yourself, and that's good. But you've got to listen to your body. You can't go full throttle all the time. Marcus exhaled sharply. He had heard those words before, but the sting of failure still gnawed at him. He sat down on a bench, rubbing his lower back. I feel like I'm always starting over, man. Every time I try to make progress, something gets in the way. It's like I'm stuck in this endless cycle. Jason knelt down in front of him, meeting his eyes. You're not stuck, Marcus. It might feel like it right now, but trust me, you're not. This is just a setback, that's all it is. You don't define your progress by one bad day. You define it by how you keep going after the setbacks. Marcus shook his head, his eyes filled with frustration. I don't know. It just feels like every time I get back on my feet, life knocks me down again. It's hard to keep believing in yourself when it feels like the universe is against you. Jason could see the depth of Marcus's struggle. He wasn't just talking about the gym, he was talking about life. And that, Jason knew, was far more complicated, but he also knew that Marcus couldn't afford to let this moment define him. I get it, man, Jason said softly. I really do. But you're stronger than you think. You're here right now, fighting through the pain. That says something. And you know what? It's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. Every time you fall, you get up. That's how you win. Marcus leaned back on the bench, staring up at the ceiling as if trying to process the weight of what Jason was saying. I want to believe that, he muttered. But sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I feel like I don't have it in me anymore. Jason sat down next to him, giving him space but remaining close enough to show he was there. That's exactly why you need to keep going. It's when you feel like giving up that you need to push even harder. I know it's tough, but remember, strength isn't just about physical power, it's about mental resilience. The world's going to test you, Marcus. It's going to knock you down, but how you respond to that is what will define you. Marcus's expression softened a little, but the weight of the struggle still hung in the air. And what if I don't have what it takes to get back up? Jason gave a half smile, the kind of smile that conveyed both understanding and belief. Then you do it anyway. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next step, and then the one after that. That's how you rebuild yourself. It's one step at a time, Marcus. There was a long silence, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. Marcus took a deep breath and nodded slowly. All right, I'll try. I'll take it one step at a time. Jason stood up, giving him an encouraging pat on the back. Good. And if you ever need someone to push you, or just to listen, I'm here. Marcus managed a small smile. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it. As Jason walked away, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Marcus wasn't out of the woods yet. This setback, this pain, was part of the journey. But Jason knew something else too. Marcus wasn't going to quit. No matter how hard it got, he would keep going. And that, in the end, would make all the difference. Marcus wasn't back in the gym the next day, or the day after. He took the time he needed to rest his back and focus on recovery. It wasn't just the physical strain that had brought him to say halt. It was the mental toll as well. He had pushed himself so hard for so long, trying to prove something to himself, and the moment he hit a setback, it was as if the weight of everything else came crashing down too. Jason hadn't seen him. Around for a few days, but he wasn't worried. He knew how these things went. Marcus would come back when he was ready. He would take the lessons to heart, like Jason had taught him, and figure out how to rise above this. But one Thursday afternoon, a week after the injury, Jason walked into the gym and immediately spotted Marcus in the corner by the stretch mats. He was stretching, but this time it was different. There was no desperation in his movements. His pace was slow, deliberate, and when he saw Jason, he gave a cautious smile. "Hey, man," Jason said as he approached. "You're back." Marcus nodded, flexing his back slowly as he stood up. "Yeah, had to take it easy for a while. My back's feeling better, though." He paused, giving Jason a sheepish grin. "I know I took a break, but I needed it. I think I was pushing myself too hard." Jason chuckled. "We all do it. It's part of the journey, but you're here and that's what matters." Marcus's smile grew a little wider. "I thought about what you said, about taking it one step at a time. I realized I was rushing everything, trying to catch up. It wasn't just the gym, it was life too. I had to slow down. And honestly, I needed to be kind to myself for once. Jason looked at him, his expression softening. That's a big step, Marcus. You know, a lot of people think they can just muscle through everything. But it's those moments of slowing down that make you stronger. It's how you learn how to recover and rebuild. Marcus's eyes gleamed with a newfound understanding. Yeah, I didn't get it at first. I was so focused on pushing past my limits that I forgot what it meant to give myself a break. I've been hard on myself for so long, trying to prove that I'm fine. But I'm not fine, and that's okay. Jason placed a hand on his shoulder. Exactly. It's okay not to be okay. And it's okay to take your time getting back to where you want to be. The key is in how you get up after you've fallen. That's the real test of strength. There was a pause between them. For a moment, everything around them seemed to fall away. It was just Marcus and Jason, two men sharing a moment of understanding that went beyond the gym. It wasn't about lifting weights or setting records. It was about learning to navigate the hard moments, the ones that tried to break you. Thanks, Jason, Marcus said, his voice quieter now. I think I needed someone to tell me that, to remind me that I'm not broken, I'm just human. Jason smiled, his voice warm. You're doing great, Marcus. And remember, this isn't a sprint. It's a marathon, one step at a time. Don't rush the process. Marcus took a deep breath and nodded. He didn't feel fully healed yet, but he felt better. There was hope in his chest, something that had been missing for a long time. The gym was no longer a place where he felt pressured to be someone else. It was a place where he could show up, even if it was just to take small steps forward. As the days went by, Marcus continued to work on his recovery, gradually easing back into his routine. The setback had been a humbling experience, but it had also been a turning point. He had learned that true strength wasn't just about pushing through pain, it was about accepting vulnerability and giving himself the space to heal. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after his injury, Jason watched Marcus in the gym. He wasn't lifting as much as he used to, but there was a determination in his eyes, a quiet strength that Jason recognized. He walked over and clapped Marcus on the back. You're looking good, man. Marcus stopped what he was doing and smiled, his face lighting up. Thanks, I'm taking it slow, but I'm starting to feel stronger. I've got a long way to go, but it's progress. Jason nodded. That's all we can ask for. Progress, not perfection. Marcus laughed softly. Yeah, I've been trying to remind myself of that. It's been tough, but I think I'm finally getting it. Jason looked around the gym, then back at Marcus. You know, you're not the only one. In here pushing through something. Everyone's fighting their own battles, but it's how you fight that makes all the difference. Marcus's smile faded just slightly, and for a moment he looked contemplative. Yeah, I get that now. We all have our struggles, but it's about what we do with them. Jason grinned. Exactly. You've got this, Marcus. Marcus returned the smile, a sense of calm settling over him. He still had a long road ahead, but for the first time in a while, he felt ready to walk it. What will Marcus face next in his journey of recovery and personal growth? Stay tuned for the next chapter to see how he continues to rise above his struggles. Don't forget to subscribe for more. It had been a few months since Marcus's injury, and while his back had healed, his recovery wasn't just physical, it was emotional and mental. Marcus had begun to realize that the hardest part of his journey wasn't the weights or the machines. It was the daily challenge of maintaining his focus and motivation. Every day was a test of patience. Every day he fought against the lingering doubts that still crept into his mind, telling him he wasn't good enough, telling him to quit. But something had changed in Marcus. He wasn't the same person who had walked into the gym all those months ago, desperate to rebuild a life that had crumbled. Now, when he looked in the mirror, he didn't just see a man trying to get stronger physically. He saw someone who had fought through setbacks, who had learned to take things one step at a time. The weight of the world hadn't disappeared, but Marcus had learned to carry it. Jason noticed the change too. He had been watching Marcus from a distance, quietly observing his progress. There was a calmness to Marcus now, a stillness that reflected his inner growth. He was more focused, more present in his workouts. It was no longer just about pushing through the pain. Marcus was learning to listen to his body, to understand when to push and when to pull back. But that didn't mean the struggles were over. If anything, the real test was just beginning. One late afternoon, Marcus walked into the gym to find a familiar face standing near the entrance. It was Chris, one of the gym's regulars. Marcus had seen him around often, but they hadn't talked much. Chris was a bit of a show-off, a guy who liked to make a scene, always lifting heavy weights and bragging about his accomplishments. But today, Chris was standing by the door, fidgeting with his phone, his usual arrogance replaced by something else, something darker. He didn't see Marcus at first, so Marcus walked over to the bench press to start his routine. Jason had been watching from across the room, as he often did. His eyes briefly flicked toward Marcus, then to Chris, noticing the way Chris was moving. Something wasn't right. As Marcus went to grab the dumbbells for his warm-up, Chris finally looked up and made his way over. His voice was sharp, his tone laced with something unfamiliar. Anger, maybe frustration. "You still coming in here trying to fix yourself?" Marcus froze, sensing the hostility in Chris's words. He glanced up, then glanced around, noticing that a few of the gym regulars were now watching the interaction with curiosity. "I'm just here to work out," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice neutral. He wasn't about to engage in anything that wasn't productive. "What's going on, Chris?" Chris scoffed, clearly not expecting such a calm response. "Don't play it cool with me, man. You think just because you're lifting weights, you're getting somewhere. You think you can just show up here and pretend everything's fine. You're weak, Marcus. You'll always be weak." The words stung, but Marcus wasn't about to let Chris get under his skin. Not anymore. He had learned better than that. He focused on taking a deep breath and letting the anger pass before he responded. "I don't need your approval, Chris. I'm doing this for me, not for you," Marcus said, his voice steady but firm. Chris's eyes narrowed, his fists clenched. At his sides. "You can pretend all you want, but you're just a guy who's trying to make up for his failures. You'll always be running from your past." That hit harder than Marcus expected, but he wasn't going to let Chris get the best of him. Instead, he met his eyes and said calmly, "You know nothing about my past, Chris, and frankly, I don't care what you think. I'm not here to prove anything to you or anyone else. I'm here because I want to be better than I was yesterday, and I'm doing that, one day at a time." For a moment, there was nothing but silence between them. The gym seemed to hold its breath, the weight of the confrontation hanging in the air. But slowly, Chris's anger seemed to fade, replaced by a look of disbelief. "You're not going to fight me?" Chris asked, almost as if he were genuinely confused by Marcus's lack of reaction. "No," Marcus said simply. "I don't need to fight you. I'm fighting myself every day." And with that, Marcus turned his back on Chris, walking toward the weight rack. The tension in the gym seemed to dissipate, and the murmurs slowly faded into the background as Marcus continued with his routine. He wasn't about to get dragged into someone else's drama. Not today. Jason had been watching from a distance, his lips curling into a satisfied grin. He was proud of Marcus. He had seen him grow from a man, struggling with his past, into someone who was finally starting to take control of his future. But there was something more important than lifting weights. Marcus had learned the hardest lesson of all, how to let go of other people's opinions. As Marcus finished his set, he caught Jason's eye across the room. Jason nodded, giving him a silent signal of approval. Marcus gave a small smile in return, acknowledging the silent understanding between them. Later that day, as the gym started to clear out, Jason approached Marcus. "You did good today," he said, his voice casual but meaningful. "You didn't let Chris get in your head." Marcus gave a shrug, but there was a confidence in his posture now that hadn't been there before. "It wasn't easy, but I realized something. Fighting other people's battles won't get me anywhere. I've got my own fight to worry about, and I'm done letting anyone else dictate how I handle it." Jason smiled, proud of the man Marcus was becoming. "That's the spirit, man. You're on the right track." Marcus nodded, glancing around the gym as if seeing it all with new eyes. "I'm starting to believe that, one step at a time, right?" Jason's grin grew wider. "Exactly. And I'll be right here watching you take those steps. What's next for Marcus as he continues to fight his battles and work towards personal growth? Don't miss the next chapter to see how he keeps overcoming his challenges. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus had always believed that the hardest part of any journey was the start. But as he walked into the gym one chilly Saturday morning, he realized the truth. It wasn't the start that was the toughest. It wasn't even the setbacks or the doubts. It was breaking through the barrier, the point where you finally have to face the full weight of what it means to change, to grow, and to evolve. It had been weeks since his confrontation with Chris. The gym was now a place where Marcus could move with more confidence, where he didn't feel the pressure to prove himself. The mirror no longer reflected a man caught in the past, struggling to escape his demons. Instead, it reflected someone who was still in the process of rebuilding, but with a quiet determination. Today, as he walked into the gym, something felt different. The energy was vibrant. There was a buzz in the air, a sense of anticipation. Jason was already there, working with a few other members. As Marcus made his way to his usual spot, he noticed that Jason seemed a bit distracted, more focused than usual. "Hey, Jason," Marcus called out, lifting a dumbbell to begin his warm-up. Jason looked up, his face a little tense. "Hey, man, I didn't see you come in. Everything good?" "Yeah, I'm good, just here to get my workout in," Marcus replied. But he couldn't help but notice the intensity in Jason's eyes. Something was clearly on his mind. Jason hesitated for a moment before replying. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about something." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What's up?" Jason motioned for him to join him by the bench press area. As Marcus walked over, he could feel the weight of Jason's unspoken words. When they reached the bench, Jason gave him a serious look. "I've been keeping an eye on you, Marcus," Jason began, his tone more serious than usual. "And I'm really proud of the progress you've made. But there's something more I think you're ready for now." Marcus felt his heart rate pick up. "More? What do you mean?" Jason grinned, the tension easing slightly. "I think you've hit a point where you're ready to push yourself harder, physically and mentally. I'm talking about stepping up your game. Not just lifting heavier weights, but facing your own limits head-on." Marcus's stomach fluttered at the thought. He had gotten comfortable with his routine, and while it was a challenge, it was one. That felt safe. He had been taking things slowly, letting himself recover and not rushing forward, but Jason was right. There was a nagging feeling, a voice in the back of his mind, urging him to go further. "You think I'm ready for that?" Marcus asked, unsure if he was truly prepared to take that step. Jason's eyes locked onto his with unwavering confidence. "I wouldn't have suggested it if I didn't believe you were. You've done the work. You've built the foundation. Now it's time to see how far you can really go." Marcus swallowed. He didn't want to back down from this opportunity, but part of him was afraid of failure, afraid of getting it wrong again. Jason could sense the hesitation. "Look, Marcus, I'm not saying you need to do this to prove anything to anyone, not to me, not to anyone in this gym. But the real question is, do you believe in yourself enough to take that next step? Do you believe in what you're capable of?" Marcus took a deep breath. The doubt was still there, but Jason's words hit home. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about challenging himself. It was about testing the strength he had built, not just in the gym, but in his mind. "Yeah," Marcus said after a pause. "I think I'm ready." Jason's smile grew wider. "Good, because you're not alone in this. I'll be right here with you every step of the way, and I'm going to push you harder than I've ever pushed anyone, but I know you can do it." That was all Marcus needed to hear. For the next hour, Jason put Marcus through a grueling workout, more intense than anything Marcus had ever done before. They started with the basics, but Jason kept adding weight, increasing the intensity, pushing Marcus to go past his mental blocks, to embrace the discomfort. It was a level of challenge that Marcus hadn't experienced in a long time. He was exhausted, sweating and aching, but something inside of him clicked. Each rep, each lift, was a reminder of how far he had come and how much further he could. But it wasn't just about the physical effort. It was about breaking through the barriers in his mind. Jason was right. Marcus had built the foundation, and now it was time to test it, to see if he had the mental strength to keep going when every part of his body screamed for him to stop. When the workout finally ended, Marcus was drenched in sweat, his muscles sore, but a sense of accomplishment washed over him. He had pushed himself in ways he hadn't thought possible. He wasn't just stronger physically. He was stronger mentally. He had faced his fears, confronted his self-doubt, and come out the other side with something more than just physical gains. Jason clapped him on the back, a grin on his face. "You did it, man. I knew you could." Marcus caught his breath, still trying to process everything. "That was insane," he said with a laugh, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "I didn't think I could do it." Jason chuckled. "Most people don't. But that's the thing. Our limits are always farther than we think. You just have to trust yourself. Enough to break through." As Marcus took a moment to catch his breath, he realized something important. This wasn't just about lifting more weight or running longer distances. It was about breaking through the barriers in his mind, pushing past the doubts and discovering the strength he never knew he had. And he wasn't done yet. This was just the beginning. Marcus is on his way to discovering just how much more he can achieve. But will this new challenge reveal more than he's prepared for? Find out in the next chapter. Don't forget to subscribe to stay with Marcus as he continues his journey. The days that followed Marcus's intense workout with Jason were filled with a quiet anticipation. For the first time in months, Marcus wasn't just going through the motions. He wasn't focused on the past or even on the present. He was looking forward. What once felt like an uphill battle now seemed like a series of small challenges waiting to be conquered. And he wasn't afraid of what lay ahead anymore. But with progress came new challenges, and as Marcus stood in the gym one evening, he could feel the weight of the next test on the horizon. It wasn't just about the physical feats he had conquered. It was the mental and emotional struggles that had always been lurking in the background. For so long, Marcus had used the gym as an escape, a place where he could block out everything else. But now it seemed like the gym had become a place where everything was coming to the surface. Jason was at the edge of the gym, talking with some of the regulars when Marcus spotted him. He waved, and Jason motioned for him to come over. "You look like you've got something on your mind," Jason said when Marcus reached him. "You good?" Marcus hesitated before answering. He had been carrying the weight of this conversation for a few days now, unsure of how to bring it up. "I think I'm ready for the next step, but it's not the lifting, Jason. It's more personal. More about my past. I've been avoiding it, but I think it's time to face it head-on." Jason raised an eyebrow, his expression shifting from one of casual interest to something more serious. "What do you mean by that?" Marcus took a deep breath. "I've been running from my past for too long. I've built this new life, and I've buried a lot of things deep down to focus on getting stronger physically. But it's time for me to face the things I've been avoiding. It's time to confront the mistakes, the fears, and the people I've hurt along the way." Jason's face softened, his eyes understanding. "That's a tough thing to do, Marcus, but you're not alone in this. I'll be here to help you, every step of the way. You've already shown that you're ready to face your physical limits. Now it's time to face the emotional ones." Marcus nodded, grateful for the support, but he still felt the weight of what he was about to do. His past was something he couldn't hide from anymore. It had been the ghost that lingered in the back of his mind, the thing that whispered doubts whenever he got too comfortable. It was time to face it, to deal with it. And so, the next few days were filled with soul-searching. Marcus reached out to old friends, family, and even people he had hurt along the way. The conversations weren't easy. Some were painful, others uncomfortable, but all of them were necessary. Each time he picked up the phone or met someone face to face, he felt himself getting a little bit stronger. But there was one conversation he knew would be the hardest, the one with his father. His father had been a distant figure in Marcus's life. The man had always been emotionally unavailable, and their relationship had been strained for years. Marcus had always blamed his father for the ways he had struggled, for the anger and the failures that had marked his life. But now, after all, this time, he realized that blaming his father had only held him back. It was time to let go of that anger. The call came late one evening. Marcus stared at the phone for a long time before hitting the dial button. The ring seemed to stretch on forever before his father finally picked up. "Hello?" His father's voice crackled over the line, cold and distant as usual. "Dad, it's me, Marcus." There was a pause on the other end, the silence thick with years of unresolved tension. Finally, his father spoke. "What's this about?" I need to talk. It's been a long time, and I think it's time to face the things we've both been avoiding." There was a deep sigh on the other end. "I don't know what you want me to say, Marcus. There's a lot of history between us. What good will talking do now?" Marcus swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. "I don't know if it'll do any good, but I can't move forward without doing it. I need to say that I'm sorry for the anger I've carried all these years. I need to let it go. I don't want to carry it anymore." His father was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus thought for a moment that he might have hung up. But then his father spoke again, softer than usual. I don't know if I can fix what's broken between us, but I hear you, son." Marcus's eyes welled up, but he didn't let the tears fall. This wasn't about him being weak. It was about healing, something he had been too afraid to do for years. "I know it can't be fixed all at once, but I'm trying. I'm trying to do better. For myself, and for everyone I've hurt." For the first time in a long time, Marcus felt like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. It wasn't an instant fix, and he knew the road ahead would still be difficult, but for the first time in years, he felt like he had taken a real step forward. The next day, Marcus walked into the gym with a new sense of clarity. His past, while never truly gone, no longer had a hold on him. He was stronger because of it, not despite it. Jason noticed the difference immediately. "So you okay?" he asked, watching Marcus as he started his workout. "Yeah," Marcus said, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I'm better than okay. I'm moving forward." Jason grinned, his pride in Marcus evident. "That's the spirit. You've got this, man." As Marcus set to work on his routine, he could feel the tension in his body start to release. He wasn't just lifting weights. He was lifting the weight of the past, of the guilt, the anger, and the doubts that had held him back for so long. And with each rep, he felt a little bit freer. The ultimate test wasn't about how much he could lift. It was about how much he was willing to face, how much he was willing to let go. And Marcus was ready. He was ready to take on whatever came next. The gym had become more than just a place for Marcus to work on his body. It was now the backdrop to his transformation, a space where not just physical strength, but mental and emotional resilience were tested. And today, as he walked in, everything felt different. Marcus had conquered the hardest part of his journey, facing his past. He had made amends, had the hard conversations, and had confronted the demons that once haunted him. And, though that didn't erase the scars, it had allowed him to step into the future with a new perspective. But there was still one thing left to prove: his commitment to this new version of himself. Jason was already in the gym, as always, pushing through his own workout. He nodded at Marcus, acknowledging his arrival without words. It was clear they had both been through a lot together, and their connection ran deeper now, more than just gym buddies. Marcus had become a friend, a symbol of the growth and strength Jason had always believed was within him. "Ready to get back to work?" Jason asked, as Marcus joined him on the floor. "I'm ready," Marcus responded, his voice steady, the calm after the storm. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've realized this isn't just about lifting weights, it's about lifting my own life. I've been carrying a lot for a long time, but now I'm ready to let it go for good." Jason paused, looking at Marcus with a proud grin. "That's exactly what I've been talking about. Strength isn't just in the muscles, it's in the mind, in the heart. You're on the right track." The workout that followed was intense, but Marcus could feel the difference. There was no pressure to prove anything anymore. There was no need to impress anyone, least of all himself. He was working out for himself, not to fill the void of insecurity, but to build something solid, something real. Jason pushed him harder than ever before, but there was a different energy in the room. Marcus wasn't fighting against the weight. He was fighting for the life he wanted. The deeper sense of purpose fueled him, and with every lift, every rep, he felt like he was moving further away from the past and closer to the person he had always wanted to be. By the end of the workout, they were both exhausted, but in a way that felt satisfying, not draining. "You've come a long way," Jason said, slapping Marcus on the back as they both took a break. "I couldn't have done it without you, man," Marcus replied, feeling a sense of gratitude he hadn't felt before. Not just the workouts, but everything. "You've been more than a trainer. You've been a guide." Jason smiled, but his expression was one of quiet sincerity. "I'm just here to help you see what I already knew was inside of you. You did the work, Marcus. This is all you." As they sat down to cool off, Marcus felt a sense of finality. He had faced the hardest parts of his past. He had risen above his doubts, fears, and insecurities, and he knew deep down that he was stronger than ever, not just in his body but in his soul. But even as Marcus realized that this chapter was closing, he understood that his journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. He had rebuilt himself physically, emotionally, and mentally. He had the tools, the strength, and the wisdom to face whatever came next. The gym would always be his sanctuary, the place where he had discovered his true potential. But now it was more than just a place to get stronger. It was the place where he had learned to overcome, to rise above, and to be the best version of himself. He knew there would be setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when the old fears would try to creep back in. But with the strength he had gained, inside and out, he was ready for whatever life threw at him. His story wasn't defined by his past. It was defined by his growth, his resilience, and his willingness to keep moving forward. As Marcus left the gym that day, he knew he had come full circle. He had found his strength, not just in the weights he lifted, but in the courage to face himself, to forgive, and to keep pushing forward. It was a new beginning, and he was ready to embrace it, one step at a time. Marcus has learned that true strength comes from within. His journey is proof that it's never too late to change, to grow, and to rebuild your life. As his story continues, what other challenges will he face? Stay tuned for more updates on Marcus's journey, and remember to subscribe for the latest chapters in his transformation